When all hope was lost, human sky marines fell from the stars. The thing about watching your civilization die in real time is that it gets boring after the first hour. I know that sounds insane. It sounded insane to me too, right up until I was on my 41st hour of watching the Dravaxi Compact peel apart the last defense fleet of Velkarath Station like they were shelling nuts, and I found myself thinking, that explosion had a nice color to it. My name is Rel Ashka. I am, or was, a communications officer for the Velkarath Free Alliance, which is a very grand name for what amounted to 4 battered cruisers, a station held together with hope and structural adhesive, and roughly 9,000 civilians who really should have evacuated 3 weeks ago. I have spent the better part of a decade relaying increasingly desperate messages to increasingly indifferent void. So forgive me if my narration comes across a little dry. Sarcasm is a coping mechanism. Also, it is the only personality trait I have left. The Dravaxi fleet outside our windows was not subtle about their intentions. Big ships, sharp angles, the kind of aesthetic that says we have never lost a war and we are not planning to start losing now. Our shields were flickering like a dying candle in a hurricane, and Commander Voss Talon was standing at the command display doing that thing he does where he grips the console so hard his knuckles turn a color that isn't in the normal Coffee spectrum. Status, he said, in the tone of a man who already knew the answer and hated it. Shields at 11%, I said. Structural integrity failing on decks 6 through 12. And, if it matters, I've sent 17 distress calls to the Galactic Concord in the last 2 hours. They've all returned an automated message informing me that Velkarath Station is, quote, outside the current jurisdiction of active humanitarian response protocols. They're not coming. They were never coming. The Concord decided we weren't worth the fuel 3 months ago. I just like reading their rejection emails out loud. It's my one joy. Talon laughed, which was somehow worse than if he'd screamed. It was the laugh of someone who had officially run out of options and was starting to find the apocalypse funny. Send one more. To who? We've hit every registered Concord world in range. Not every world. He looked at me with the specific expression of a man about to do something colossally stupid. Send it to Earth. I stared at him. The quarantine world? The one the Concord kicked out of the Alliance 200 years ago for being, and I quote the official record here, unacceptably prone to violence and incapable of long-term diplomatic restraint? That Earth? That Earth. Sir, with respect, that is not a rescue plan, that is a cry for help disguised as a joke. Send it anyway, Ashka. We're out of dignity. Might as well be out of options too. So I sent it. I wanted on record that I did not expect a response. I expected the signal to drift into human space, get flagged by some board monitoring drone, and die quietly in a server somewhere while nobody with authority ever saw it. That is what happens to messages sent to a species the entire galaxy agreed to stop talking to. 11 minutes later, my console chimed. I want you to understand that 11 minutes, across the distance our signal had to travel, should have been physically impossible. I checked the origin coordinates 4 times. Then I opened the message. It wasn't in diplomatic code. It wasn't even in proper Concord standard grammar. It was, and I am translating this as literally as I can, yo, this is Corporal Duarte, got your SOS, sending help, hang tight, ETA a few hours give or take, don't die LOL. I read it out loud to the bridge. Nobody spoke for a solid 10 seconds. What, said Talon, is a LOL? I have no idea, I said. But I believe it's a threat. You have to understand, we had heard stories about humans. Everyone in Concord space had heard stories about humans, the same way you hear stories about a distant, violent uncle nobody invites to dinner anymore. They fought each other constantly, we were told. They ate meat cooked over open flame for entertainment. They had, within living memory of their own species, invented weapons capable of unmaking a planet, and then argued about whether to use them the way the rest of us argue about lunch. The Concorde's official position was that humanity was too unstable to integrate. Watching the Dravaxi flagship, the Ashen Maw, glide into firing position outside our station, I found myself thinking that unstable might currently be exactly what the situation called for. "They're not coming," said Lieutenant Kor, our tactical officer, a Valithi with a talent for pessimism so refined it bordered on art. "It's a hoax. Or a hallucination. We've been under fire for 2 days, we're probably all just imagining rescue because our brains can't process the alternative." "I'm not hallucinating a lowercase LOL, I said. "My imagination has more self-respect than that." Talon held up a hand. "Just wait." We waited. The Ashen Maw's weapon arrays began to glow, that horrible orange-white color that means somebody is about to have an extremely bad day, and I remember thinking, well, this is it, this is how the story ends, killed by aliens while waiting on a species famous for barbecue and nuclear anxiety to show up fashionably late. That is when the sky tore open. Not metaphorically. I mean the actual visual field outside the station cracked with re-entry trails, dozens of them, streaking down through what remained of our battered defense grid like someone had thrown a fistful of burning nails at the enemy fleet. No warp signature. No formal fleet announcement. No diplomatic hail requesting permission to engage hostile forces in accordance with Concorde Article whatever. Just pods. Drop pods, falling out of nowhere, screaming through the black in perfect, terrifying silence until they hit atmosphere and started screaming for real. "That's them," Talon said, and he had the audacity to sound relieved. "They're falling out of the sky in metal coffins," said Kor. "That's not a rescue, that's a form of suicide." My comms lit up with an open channel, unencrypted, humming with a voice that sounded like it belonged to someone taking a leisurely stroll rather than plummeting toward an active war zone at terminal velocity. "Velkarath Station, this is Sergeant Elias Bragg, Human Sky Marine Detachment, we are inbound and we brought snacks. Please advise on hostile positions, and also please don't shoot us, that would be embarrassing for everyone." I looked at Talon. Talon looked at me. "Tell him," Talon said slowly, "everything. I have covered a lot of combat in my career. I have narrated fleet battles, boarding actions, one particularly memorable incident where a Valithi diplomat tried to fight off a hull breach with a ceremonial letter opener. None of it prepared me for watching human sky marines fight. They didn't move like soldiers who were afraid of dying. They moved like people who were mildly annoyed they had to be here at all." Bragg's squad hit the boarding corridor on Deck 9, where a Dravaxi assault team had already carved a hole through our defenses, and instead of the tense, disciplined silence I expected from elite soldiers, "I got this," broadcast cheerfully over open comms for the whole station to hear. Contact left. Contact right. Contact everywhere. Honestly, this hallway is very popular today. Then gunfire. Then, I swear to every god any species in this galaxy has ever prayed to, someone started humming. "Is that music?" Kor asked, staring at the feed with the expression of someone watching a building collapse in slow motion. "I believe," I said, "that is a human field medic humming while she stitches a bullet wound closed. In the middle of a firefight." "Why?" "I don't know, Kor. I don't know why humans do anything. I don't think they know either." Bragg's team cleared Deck 9 in under 6 minutes. 6 minutes, against a Dravaxi assault force we had been losing to for 2 days. He signed off the channel afterward with, "Deck's clear, boss," though I wanted on record that whoever designed this station's ventilation system should be legally prevented from designing anything ever again. I was starting to understand, with a mixture of horror and something dangerously close to affection, that humans treated the apocalypse the way the rest of us treat a delayed transport shuttle. Deeply inconvenient. Mildly annoying. Definitely someone's fault. Not actually scary. The real problem was the Ashen Maw. 6 drop pods and 1 sarcastic sergeant were not going to stop a Dravaxi flagship from glassing an entire station, and everyone on the bridge knew it, watching its main cannon charge for what would be the final, decisive shot. Talon opened the channel to brag, his voice tight. "Sergeant, that flagship is preparing to fire. We have no defense capable of stopping it. If you have any further assets." "Oh, the big one?" "Yeah, we've got a plan for that." Sort of. Sort of. Define sort of, I said, because apparently I had decided today was the day I lost what remained of my professional composure. "So," Bragg said, and I could hear him grinning, which is a genuinely unsettling thing to hear in someone's voice, "we brought some old ordnance. Real old. Concord banned this stuff centuries ago, back when we were still allowed to talk to you guys, said it was too unstable, too indiscriminate, blah blah blah. Point is, we never actually got rid of it, we just stopped telling people we had it." "You want to detonate banned nuclear weapons next to my station," Talon said. "Not next to it. Inside their shield generator. Very different. Duarte's gonna fly it in manually, cut engine signature so their sensors don't clock her till it's way too late, ram the payload straight into the generator housing, and get out before it pops. Simple." "That is not simple, that is a suicide run. Only if she's bad at flying. Duarte's not bad at flying." I muted my mic, took a breath, and turned to Talon. "I would like to formally state, for the historical record, that this plan is insane." "Noted," Talon said. "Do we have a better one?" I did not have a better one. Nobody had a better one. That is, I have come to understand, the exact moment when humans stop being a last resort and start being the only resort, and there is apparently a version of desperation clarifying enough to make even certain doom sound like a reasonable Tuesday afternoon plan. Corporal Duarte's voice came over the channel a few minutes later, calm as still water. "Command, this is Duarte, I'm running the payload in. If anybody's got a good luck charm, now's the time." "You have a countdown song picked out," Bragg said, somewhere in the background, still holding the boarding corridor against a fresh wave of Dravaxi troops, punctuating his sentence with the crack of gunfire. "Obviously. Play it loud." I have no idea what human music sounds like transmitted through a stripped-down shuttle's external comm array during a nuclear payload delivery run, and honestly I never want to know, because what I heard was a driving, thumping rhythm and Duarte's voice counting something down under her breath while the Ashen Maw's point defense guns lit up the black trying to swat her out of the sky. "She's not going to make it," Kor said. "She's going to make it," I said, and I don't know why I believed it, except that everything I had seen from these people in the last hour suggested that humans do the impossible specifically because everyone around them keeps saying they can't. The shuttle clipped the edge of the shield generator housing at a speed that should not have been survivable, and for one terrible second the feed just showed static. Then the Ashen Maw's shields collapsed inward, and the ship's entire aft section erupted in a blinding column of white fire that turned night into day across half the station's viewports. The shockwave rattled our hull. Alarms screamed. And then, silence, followed by the ragged, disbelieving cheer of every surviving crew member on the bridge. "Duarte, sound off," Bragg said, and for the first time all day, his voice actually sounded worried. Static. Then, breathless, laughing, yeah, I'm here, ejected in time, my ears are ringing but I'm alive. Tell command the flagship's toast." The Dravaxi fleet, leaderless and reeling, began to retreat within the hour. We won. I keep writing that sentence and it still doesn't feel real. 2 days of siege, a station on the verge of collapse, a Concorde that had left us for dead, and it was ended by 6 drop pods, 1 deeply unhinged pilot, and a sergeant who apparently could not stop making jokes even while personally clearing 3 decks of enemy soldiers with what I can only describe as enthusiastic efficiency. By the time I made it down to the hangar bay to actually meet these people in person, they had already found some salvageable ration packs, rigged a scorched piece of hull plating into what Bragg proudly called a grill, and were in the process of throwing what I can only describe as a small barbecue in the middle of the wreckage they had just saved us from. Duarte was there, helmet off, laughing about something with a station engineer who had absolutely no idea what she was laughing about but was laughing anyway. "You just fought a war," I said, genuinely bewildered. "You are currently standing in the wreckage of that war. And you're grilling." "Best time to grill," Bragg said, flipping something unidentifiable on his makeshift grill. "Nobody's shooting at you and you're just glad to be alive. Want some?" I did not know what it was. I ate it anyway. It was, against every expectation I had for this day, genuinely good. I don't know what the Concord is going to say when they hear the humans they exiled 2 centuries ago just single-handedly turn back a Dravaxi flagship with banned ordnance and a pop song countdown. I don't particularly care. What I know is this: the galaxy has a new rule now, quiet, unofficial, but very real. When everything is lost, when every proper channel has failed you, when the last cruiser is gone and the shields are down and there is genuinely nothing left to try, you send one message, to one quarantined little blue world nobody bothered to keep talking to. Just be ready for them to make a joke about your cooking first.